Falcons head to Arizona bruised and battered after a 1-4 start, but surprisingly favored to beat the Cardinals this Sunday, which probably only adds to the pressure that Dan Quinn feels. We'll talk about why next, right here on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
Now, you want to talk about a guy who's ready to get the Falcons back on a winning track? That's the former Falcon sitting next to me, Chuck Smith. He's decked out head to toe today. He's got the hat on. He's got the
Falcon pride.
Listen, at the end of the show, he also kind of brings out, and I love this part of it. It's my favorite thing we do. He'll kind of bring out some of his, favorite artifacts, some of the things from his career. He came in here toting so much memorabilia today. Are you single-handedly trying to turn the tide for the Falcons here? If you are, I'm all about it, and I appreciate that. But it's a lot of energy here from you on a Friday, which I love to see.
Well, at the end of the day, no matter what, I'm a Falcon. I was a Falcon in the 70s when I was a kid, in the early 80s. I got the blessings of playing for the Falcons. And, I've been talking about the Falcons. I'm a Falcon fan. No matter what I say, I'm down with the guys. I wish them the best, but, we got some questions that need to be answered today.
There are some questions that do need to be answered. Let me start with something I mentioned a moment ago as we were just coming on the air. In a weird way, for Dan Quinn, and there's no way to slice this up other than this, at a certain point in time, this guy's obviously coaching for his job. 1-4 is not the start that Arthur Blank wanted to get off to. Falcons fans are just unbelievably disappointed by all of this. We know all that. We get all that. And the fact that you're actually playing, even though it's on the road, and you've been away from home now for kind of a long time, having been at Houston last week and then staying west the entire time here, the fact that Atlanta is playing a winnable game today, they are a Vegas point spread favorite, for instance, in some ways that puts even more pressure on Dan Quinn, right? It'd be one thing if you're playing, a Super Bowl contender on Sunday, something where you could just kind of write the game off and say, what's happening next? No, this is Arizona. This is one of the games that virtually every fan would have had circled at the beginning of the season. In fact, they're playing a rookie quarterback, got a rookie head coach, only adds to that. It really puts more pressure on Quinn to get it done, does it not?
Well, you're 100% right. It puts a lot of pressure on Quinn and his team. Number one, because not only are the Falcon fans watching, the world is watching. Mm-hmm. You watch all the TV shows this weekend, because a lot of people, this is a favorite by a lot of people to win the Super Bowl, to play in the Super Bowl. And all the dysfunction that's going on, all the little things like the 10 men on the field or the coverage problems they've had or the red zone issues, all that magnifies even more.
Yeah.
And the players are conscious of it. So going into this game, the key is not worrying about making mistakes, but there's no question those are the kind of things that everybody's watching that puts a lot of pressure on the Falcons.
I think you're right about that. Something else that puts pressure on Quinn individually are the continued noticings on the part of people who kind of chop this stuff up for a living regarding the way that his defense in particular is played. Obviously, going back the week prior against Houston, that's a debacle. But I also thought this tweet was interesting from a guy that I also referenced a week ago, last Friday on our program, Warren Sharp, who kind of cut some of the numbers and things along those lines. Look at this tweet from Sharp Football here. The 2016 Falcons had the number 1 offense under Kyle Shanahan, who's obviously now the 49ers coach, number 26 defense under Dan Quinn. They nearly won the Super Bowl. Kyle leaves, Quinn stays, defense still bad. 28 in 2017, 31 in 2018, 26 thus far in 2019. And he says without Kyle, the offense hasn't been the same. So, boy, when you see those numbers from Warren Sharp, it echoes what you and I have talked about a little bit. Fair or unfair, the sentiment is out there that NFC Championship 2016 solely belonged to Kyle Shanahan, and with him gone, the pieces left over, whether it was Steve Sarkisian calling the offensive plays or Dirk Cutter now, Dan Quinn's defense plus another offensive coordinator has just not equaled the same thing, and that string of consecutive bad defenses, including the NFC Championship year, that's what Quinn is being asked to account for starting this Sunday against Arizona, is it not?
No, you're exactly right. And one of the things that we've kind of talked about is Kyle Shanahan, what he did here. And there's somewhat of a sub-topic that Julio's not open.
Yeah.
The line's not protecting. Their creativity. So there's so many other things that are coming as far as the conversation about what Kyle Shanahan did, but there's no secret to it. I watched the San Francisco 49ers the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Who were they playing? Cleveland?
Mm-hmm.
The offense was incredible. I mean, they were running reverses, got Debo Samuel from South Carolina in the mix. You got, all these great players. So I'm all about the visual. That offense was really creative. And Kyle Shanahan, he's got something, you know what I'm saying? I never thought after that Super Bowl we'd be coming back saying, wow, we'd love to have him back. You know, when he left out of here, everybody was ready to run him out of town. But there is some questions about the OC, and Dan still hadn't figured it out.
Yeah, and here in Atlanta, it's not just Quinn figuring out who's supposed to be his offensive play caller and how the offense gets better. It's also that defensive side of the ball. The thing that Quinn now owns is not just the head coach of this team, but as defensive coordinator as well. And while Arizona is not among the best teams in the NFL, they do present some defensive challenges for Atlanta because Cliff Kingsbury has brought kind of a Big 12 style into the NFC West, and because they've got a rookie quarterback, Kyler Murray, who was the number 1 overall pick and brings that energy with his legs and his arm. I want to let you hear from Quinn on that topic in just a moment. Before that, though, let me remind you that we are AJC Falcons News Now. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon, Chuck Smith, and we're sponsored by Miller Lite. Really appreciate you being a part of the program, and really thank Miller Lite for being a part of the program as well. So if you're getting ready to watch Falcons on Sunday, gathering some folks around your living room, Miller Lite's a great choice for your game watching party because they are the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great, and it's just 96 calories. So great to have Miller Lite and all of you as a part of our program today. Now, as far as Dan Quinn goes, knowing the coach on the other sideline, Cliff Kingsbury, handsome guy, got the scruffy beard, got the abs all in check. You know, he's a good-looking guy. He looks like he's just coming straight from the club to be on the sideline coaching in the NFL, kind of like their version of what Sean McVay is doing for the Rams. You got these like handsome, like chiseled chin guys coaching the NFL now. Kingsbury's one of those guys.
Yeah, he is. I mean, that's what people like right now. Also, it's about the optics, too. Remember, I mean, believe it or not, owners like guys who look the part, too. Let me tell you, again, you hear me talking about Rex Ryan a lot of times. Rex used to say that the reason he didn't get jobs early in his career because his teeth was messed up. Man, if I would have had my choppers fixed up. So I'm telling you, when getting a job, if you are, not trying to fat shame nobody, and this is just Rex Ryan, it is documented. Rex would tell us that he did not, and then he got his teeth fixed. Look at my choppers now, I got a head job. You know, and real stuff. So, but seriously,
that's the real
when
talk.
You're a good coach, I mean, those are, just it is in America. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
But these young guys are young, Hollywood looking. They got the flashy offense. So Cliff Kingsbury, you're right. McVay, it's the league. It's a younger man's league. So, young guys look younger than old guys.
Right. And as Falcons coach Dan Quinn has explained, Kingsbury's more than just a handsome dude. He's also a guy that's bringing kind of an interesting offense to the Cardinals. In fact, here is what Quinn said about that earlier this week.
There's, parts of the game that really can play quickly, and they'll go in between different, personnel groups of 4 wide receivers, and so often you'll see that with empty and spread sets where they can make quick decisions, to get the ball out. And then what they probably do different than some of the other programs is they'll mix in other personnel groups as well, where 3 receivers and a tight end, 2 receivers, 2 tight ends. You saw that last week. So it's not just all the way wide open, for every snap. It's a mix of wide open sets and traditional sets as well.
I do think what you hear from Quinn there is pretty interesting. I've kind of made my case both half serious and half joking about stinking for Lincoln, the fact that I believe that Lincoln Riley would look awful good standing on Atlanta Falcons sideline. I'm not going to lie about that. But as Quinn said, looking across at Kingsbury from the same conference that Riley coaches in now, it can't be all like air raid, right? It can't be all 4 wide receivers all the time. You in the NFL, you are going to get beaten up eventually. That's the only thing you do. You still have to be a bit multiple. You got to have tight ends on the field from time to time. And Arizona's, according to Quinn, there is going to try to do some of that. So as much as this more finesse style of offense seems to be taking hold in a lot of different spots in the NFL, Quinn says you've also got to be on guard for them doing some of the more traditional NFL things as well.
Yeah, because when times get tough, you want to run the ball. And you always want to start the game off running the ball. But one thing I'll say about what Dan said, in this new era, people understand that you got to have balance, right? If you don't have balance, and let me tell you why you really got to have balance when you're going against a good team.
Yeah.
Now, no disrespect to the Falcons. They've shown that you don't necessarily have to have balance to beat the Falcons.
Yeah.
But when you're playing against a ferocious type of defense now, if you're playing against New England or Minnesota, you got to have balance because the kind of guys you're going against, they'll knock your block off.
Yeah.
So if the guys know you're throwing every time, guess what the safety's going to be waiting for?
Yeah.
To knock you out. So to
That's
me,
a good point.
So when you're playing against the team like the Falcons, balance is not as important because they've shown that they cannot stop the pass.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, speaking of the guy throwing the football for the Arizona Cardinals, it's Kyler Murray. He is a rookie in this league. We saw him do big things in college, but the challenge of stopping Murray on Sunday, that is also something that Quinn has addressed this week. In fact, here's what the Falcons coach said about that.
one, you know he can rip it, so you see him in the pocket and can make all the throws. But the design runs it's happened not just in that last game, but in some other ones as well. He's run for touchdowns on quarterback draw. He's gotten first downs on design runs. And then, of course, on a scramble play where it starts off as one play and then the second one, begins with that. So we've got our work cut out for us for sure, but that's part of what this week's about, is to make sure that part of our game's really intact. But yeah, it's been a good challenge to see some of the unique things that he brings just based on his speed. A lot of people can run a read option, but it's definitely different when there's somebody who has real gas back there.
I'm going to get some comments here in a moment, but let me be very candid with my own comment before we do that. You cannot let Kyler Murray look good on Sunday. I don't care if he can run. I don't care what kind of touchdowns he threw at Oklahoma. I don't care about any of that kind of stuff. I think the jury is still very much out if Kyler Murray's a long-term starter in the NFL. I am not sold on him at all for a lot of the same reasons you've heard of the other people talking about. There is a chance that Murray is a flame out in this league eventually. You cannot let him look good against you. It's one thing for Deshaun Watson, who I do think is I'm not saying he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but no one's going to question Deshaun Watson. He's absolutely cemented in his spot there in the Houston Texans, and he makes them a dangerous team with a chance to win in virtually every game they play. It's one thing to get beaten up by Deshaun Watson. You cannot make Kyler Murray look like the Heisman of the NFL. You cannot let that happen on Sunday. If you do, somebody's not coming back from Phoenix or Glendale or wherever is this game being played.
Well, I got a feeling that Kyler Murray is going to make the Falcons, he's going to really challenge. Now, I know it can't happen, but to me, running the ball. Kyler Murray has started running the ball more. And if I'm Kyler Murray and I'm going against the Falcons, they're going to play zone. But I'm going to tell you what they're going to do this week. They've been beat up about what? Playing zone. Mm-hmm. Dan Quinn is going to take some chances. Watch what I tell you. Dan going to take some chances on the blitz. Now you got to watch Kyler Murray getting out of the pocket and different things like that. I just got a funny feeling this week that it's going to keep rolling. It's like sometime when you're playing, it becomes like that boulder going down the hill and you just can't figure it out. But if the Falcons don't stop him running, it's going to be a long day for him. I didn't have a good feeling last week about it. It's just not a good vibe for me around the Falcons. Too many excuses, too many times I'm hearing the same thing.
Fair to point out, Falcons owner Arthur Blank does feel a bit more optimistic. I'll tell you what he said about this situation going back from a few days ago. We'll do that coming up in just a moment. It's AJC Falcons News Now. Let me take a few of your comments here. We're sponsored by Miller Lite. Keith Campbell says, we don't blitz. Fastest guys on defense, we will not send them. Now, later on, Chuck's actually done some real homework this week about how he thinks the Falcons' pass rush is supposed to improve.
Got a solution.
I won't steal your thunder on this now,
right,
but let's just let Keith know that you've been really working on that this week, and you've got some good stuff ready to go on that.
I was in the lab, just messing around with some stuff.
I like the lab. So, Keith, don't go anywhere because Chuck's going to break this down coming up in just a little bit. Jamel Mahoney says he'd be a bottom-feeder head coach. He means Cliff Kingsbury in the SEC, anywhere besides Florida, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Auburn. Keep Lincoln Riley where he is in that weak Big 12. So Jamel Mahoney is not liking Lincoln Riley. Now, I got some Lincoln Riley stuff for y'all later on today.
But my thing is, I don't like when everybody we compare versus the SEC. Yeah. Have y'all been I'm not getting into the SEC, but you give me Alabama's talent pretty much what they got, I can coach them, right?
Yeah.
So, but the SEC thing about people coaching the SEC, that's no measuring stick. SEC, outside of Bama and a few of these other teams, Georgia, SEC, sorry.
Wow.
Like Mississippi State,
there's
Ole
some bad
Miss,
teams. There's
Tennessee,
some bad teams.
Vanderbilt,
No,
and I'm an SEC
teams.
guy, but
hey, there's some bad teams.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, there's some bad teams. David Park says, so if the Falcons lose, will they fire the coach, replace the quarterback, fire the GM? I don't know about all those things, but David, we talked about the notion of kind of a must-win thing off the top of the show. And listen, guys that do what I do for a living, kind of talking into a microphone, cameras, lights, we love must-win scenarios. We like hyping things up. So at times, I am guilty probably of being hyperbolic and saying it's a must-win when it's not. Just given everything that's happened for Atlanta up until this point in time, and given who you're playing on Sunday and what you have left after this, with two NFC West teams that are really good and Seattle and LA coming in, on the road for Carolina and New Orleans after that, given the fact that kind of the line in the sand of what you can come back from would seem to be drawn this Sunday in Glendale, I don't think I'm being too much of a hype man for saying it's a must-win. There are going to be some times when I might be guilty of hyping things up too much. I don't think I'm hyping this up too much as a must-win game, though.
It is a must-win. And if anybody thinks it's not a must-win, you're kidding yourself. The Falcons have to win. And remember, this is also about jobs. This isn't just about must-win. This is about livelihood, which is actually bigger than must-win. So for the Falcons, number one, reaching your potential. Number two, guys, jobs on the line. They must win at the end of the day. I'm telling you, which is a huge role, it's big when it comes to Dan Quinn's job. You better win because the fans.
Yeah.
This is also about money, right? This is about money.
Yeah.
So if I'm an owner, I'm thinking, we got all this talent. I done spent all this money. If you can't get it done, DQ, I'm going to manage my situation. I'm going to manage this situation for the whole year till I can get someone better. So you better win right now because Arthur is managing what's going on, and he's going to make decisions that benefit his team.
Well, Zach Walker in our Facebook comment section was kind of echoing some of the same kind of stuff about, fan interest right now and how fans respond if there's another loss, and also kind of some pointed criticism from the commenter about Matt Ryan. Now, later on, as a way of being fair and balanced, because we have been pretty hard on Quinn, and for the most part, we've kind of, I don't want to say taking it easy on the franchise quarterback, but he hasn't been at least as much of the subject of criticism for me. I am going to share some audio with you from a national guy that you've heard of who was pretty tough on Ryan this week, and I'll share that with you before we're done here today as a way of maybe discussing how much responsibility does your franchise quarterback bear in all of this. It's one thing for me to say I'm not quite so sure about Dirk Cutter as an offensive coordinator and not quite so sure about Steve Sarkisian, but, there are people who are going to put Matt Ryan in the conversation of Hall of Fame quarterback. Are you a Hall of Fame quarterback if you only look like one when Kyle Shanahan's your OC? At some point in time, you got to ask that question, right?
Well, you do, and that's an interesting comment you make there. But for me, my opinion is this: Matt Ryan is the best quarterback we've ever had, maybe the best player, him and Julio. There might be 1 and 2. Matt Ryan's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
If Matt Ryan wins that Super Bowl and has that MVP, he's in the conversation. But right now, a lot of the blame to me goes with, as a former player, I'm blaming Desmond Trufant. Remember, this is football.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into taking it personal. From a football standpoint, he's the one taking the bad angle in the coverage.
Yeah.
Offensive line, Q ain't giving up no spin moves like we've seen Jake Matthews give up against Minnesota.
Yeah.
So to me, it's literally, guys, it's an entire pot of mess that's being put in this pot, and they stirring it up.
Yeah.
Some of the things, Devontae Freeman hit the hole. You see what I'm saying? Offensive coordinator, let's make something happen. D coordinator Q, blitz up some plays. There's so many negatives right now on the Falcons. Matt Ryan is not at the top of the list. He fits right in there with everyone else.
Now, it's worth pointing out the Falcons owner Arthur Blank, when he spoke to the AJC last week, said it's way too early to give up on this season just yet. I'll tell you and remind you what he said coming up in a moment. Before that, as I said, it's AJC Falcons News Now. We are sponsored by Miller Lite. Glad to have all of you with us. And by the way, don't forget, one of the cool things that we do here on our program each and every week is remind you we've got a great gift we want to give you as an incentive when you become an AJC subscriber. Now, of course, you've trusted the AJC for your Falcons coverage for a long time, and kind of the way to get the most in-depth Falcons coverage from the AJC is take that next step and become a subscriber. A lot of different choices out there for you. You can get the daily AJC e-paper. You can get e-paper plus Sunday delivery, or you can get the paper delivered to your house 7 days a week, plus the e-paper, of course, as well for more on-the-go reading. And when you get that, as a special thank you to you, we have this officially branded Atlanta Falcons cooler. So you're watching some games over at somebody else's house on Sunday, just pack your cooler, take it with you, you'll be ready to go. And of course, the AJC is a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons. That's why you see the Falcons crest right there on that cooler. Make sure you check that out. And speaking of the Falcons and the AJC, as I said before, Falcons owner Arthur Blank was interviewed by Steve Hummer coming off the loss to the Houston Texans. Pretty appropriate to hear from the owner after that. And while Blank acknowledged, and we talked about this on Monday, that he was losing a little bit of his confidence in some areas, the one thing he has not done is given up hope on the season, and he cited a credible reason as to why. Let me remind you of the piece that Hummer wrote with Arthur Blank and show you this quote from the Falcons owner. He says about his team, they can turn it around. The Colts last year started 1-5, ended up in the playoffs, and won a wild card game. It can happen. We haven't played a single divisional game yet. It's obviously an opportunity, but we have to play better than we've been playing. That's for sure. No matter who we're playing, we're not going to be successful unless we do that. So there were some people last week, and I'm not even so sure I wasn't one of these people. There were some people last week who said the Texans game is so bad, you got to fire Quinn right here on the spot. It's that bad. There's no hope for this team. You got to fire Quinn. Blank's retort to people who thought that's actually pretty good. He's citing a specific example, not from 100 years ago. He's citing a specific example of a team with the same record going back to just last year that not only made the playoffs, won in the playoffs once they got there. I think he's also credibly pointing out Falcons haven't played a division game as of yet. Now, the one thing I'm going to push back on him on is, yeah, but Mr. Blank, have you seen this division? Carolina looks pretty good right now. New Orleans is obviously, to quote Denny Green, who we thought they were. Tampa's probably better than I assumed that they would be. So I might sort of pick nits about the chance of actually winning games in the division. But for the people who demanded action after last Sunday, Blank's response actually, I think, has some merit.
Well, I think so also, too, because, I mean, the season, is it over? No. Have they played bad? Yes. Have we seen their best game yet? No. Mm-hmm. They got games to play, but this is an offense and a team that's deadly. So that's what makes it more frustrating. This team has the capabilities, but the more you lose, the harder it is to catch back up. Now, I understand what Arthur's saying, and he's being optimistic, but they do have the kind of guys, and I've talked about this before. I know their DNA. I don't know the secondary's DNA now, but the front. Hey, no, I mean, I know Grady. I know Devondre personal. I know Dion. I mean, really, I know them as people.
Right.
They're not some weak dudes. And so I just know that they're tough. They're going to play hard. And, you know, and that's what I can focus on. So him saying they can come back, them dudes that I named in that front seven, they're the kind of guys that I can see them turning it around.
So here's what I'm going to say in response to the quote from Blank. And by the way, you can read the full interview with Steve Hummer and Arthur Blank at AJC.com. It's up there right now. Or become an AJC subscriber. You can read all those interviews as they happen as the AJC covers this very interesting Falcon season. Here's what I would say in response to Blank. I don't believe the scenario you put forth is going to play out this year. I think the NFC is too tough. I think the division right now is too tough. I don't think the Falcons can salvage their season. I don't trust Dan Quinn to save it. And I think the conference you're playing in, the division you're playing in, makes that virtually impossible. However, if that's the reason you want to cite for not firing Quinn going back to the Texans game, that to me seems like a legitimate argument. If that's the argument that that Mr. Blank wants to make, going back to cite a year ago of a team that got off to a bad start that made the playoffs, not even forgetting the fact that the Falcons didn't exactly get off to a gangbuster start when they won the NFC in 2016. With all of that said, if that's what you want to cite, that is to me a legitimate argument for now. I don't think it holds much water if you lose to the Cardinals, but going into the game against Arizona on Sunday, that's a pretty credible case.
Yeah, it is credible, but when you think about the Falcons situation now, I'll tell you the reason why I struggle a little bit with thinking they'll turn it around. Now, do they, like I said, I'm not going to make say whether I think they are or not, because I really don't know. But I will tell you this, the thing that makes me a little nervous and disappointed and makes it hard for me to say, hey, they're going to turn around, because the amount of responsibility Dan Quinn has. Mm-hmm. He is accepting me. He's the head coach. He's the coordinator. He's the decision maker on the sideline. Just like he has the situational guy now. Dan is going to help with that, so he's pulled in so many different directions to stress. I just think, to me, it doesn't set up for a great second half because there's so many question marks about not only the offense, but I just think Q has too much on his plate also being a D-line coach.
Well, here's the thing, too. It's like, and I'm going to say this as not a former player. You obviously know the defense on the field. I mostly know what people like you tell me. But, this past Monday, we had so many players in this league, players that played for the Texans, players that had a connection to Atlanta. Admittedly, maybe they're haters, maybe they got an axe to grind because they weren't kept on the roster, whatever. But you got so many people who are like, oh, this defense is too vanilla, it's soft zone, it's this, it's that, not saying enough pressure, not being aggressive enough with your secondary and kind of press coverage. After a while, when I hear NFL players, whether it be former players, current players, opponents on the other sideline, when that many people say the same thing, and the impact that it has on me as a non-former player, non-current player, I'm left to say, well, if everybody's saying the same thing, I guess they must just be telling the truth. I mean, I have lost so much trust in Quinn as a coach. I'm talking about trust in the assumption that he's going to fix this and figure all this out. I've lost so much of that for him, just on the basis of how many people are like, soft zone, no pressure, easy to defend against, pretty vanilla, pretty simple. You can't hear the same thing over and over again until finally you just start believing it.
We heard that last year. Yeah. Somebody said that last year against the Falcons, that we knew what they were going to run the whole nine. But let me just tell you what that's about. All these players think Q getting fired. Mm-hmm. So if I'm a player and I'm in the league, I bet you they wouldn't say that if they thought if the Falcons were rolling and they still beat the Falcons. Because guess what? I might have to go to Atlanta and work out as a free agent.
That's right.
There's a lot of that going on. But I will say this. When you win, you get the final word thing. Ask the Braves how that works.
No.
I mean, no, I'm just saying, though, guess what? When you lose and you come out there and the expectations, you beating your chest somewhat. The Falcons came out beating their chest, so the Braves got what? They basically said that what the guys, and I didn't even watch it. All I know is I heard the Braves finish. They basically got somewhat
it was not good.
The softness, right?
A lot of our audience knows.
But you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
whatever the guy said after the game.
Yeah.
When you're the winner, you're going to get the last word. And right now, people love Atlanta, the city. People love, but think about all the love Atlanta got and all the hype, man. So after the game, people were basically taking shots because they assume this franchise is headed down when it comes to the coach. So it makes it easy.
Thomas Hubbard says, what about getting the number 1 pick? Listen, I'd be all for, tanking for the most part works. I'd be all for it if you thought you could get it. The problem is, as things are not good in Atlanta, between Miami and Washington, who actually played this week, throw the Jets in there, there's a lot of really, really bad teams. I mean, Atlanta's not good. I don't think Atlanta has a shot of getting the number 1 pick. Now, could they get up there fairly close? There's a lot of quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. Maybe have some real potential trade down value, which I'm always in favor of. There's a chance that could be in play depending on how this kind of stuff works out. The number 1 pick, though, I mean, are you going to tell me anybody with the Dolphins is getting that number 1 pick? Anybody but the Dolphins? Is Washington really worse than the Dolphins? I know they fired Jay Gruden. Arizona's not good. But, I mean, Miami, to my mind, is the worst NFL team that I've seen.
Ever?
I'm not.
What about Detroit when Matt Millen was the GM?
I'd like to ask somebody that because we've had 2 teams go 0-16, right? Browns and Jets.
Yeah.
I think this Miami team may be worse small.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, Browns
Lions.
and Lions. I don't know why I said Jets. Browns and Lions. We've had 2 teams go winless. I think this Miami team's the worst. I think it's the worst because what you did not have when Cleveland and Detroit were going winless, you didn't have a lot of people trying to get off the ship. You got a kid from Alabama. You got these guys trying to hop off this team. It's kind of a mess. I don't think you can get the number 1 pick, but could you get a high draft pick? You might be able to do that.
Falcons looking like a top 10 right now. I mean, somewhere up in there, they keep playing the way they're playing.
Billy Ray Field says not the number 1 pick, but however, we do have a draft for the future. We do get a quarterback. Stick with I'm not sure who he's saying there, but basically saying that you do have a chance to play for pretty good draft positioning. And unfortunately, I do think that's in play. Now, these players would never do that. The coaching staff would never do that. But in terms of how it shake out, Falcons having a very valuable draft pick that I would like to see them trade with somebody else. If things keep going the way they're going right now, Chuck, you just got to be honest, that's very much in play. Now, there's a lot of football left, as Mr. Blank said a moment ago. But in terms of having maybe a pretty interesting draft pick that some of these teams that are quarterback hungry would really want with Fromm and Tua and all those, Justin Herbert, all those guys coming into the draft this year, you might have a pretty valuable draft pick for somebody.
I love you viewers out there kind of getting into the hypothetical. The Falcons' number 1 pick already, man, to me, they're not getting the number 1 pick, but right now they still have an opportunity now. To me, they still have an opportunity to win games, whether they get to the playoffs or not, but they do have an opportunity to have a respectable season. That's what Arthur Blank is saying. At the end of the day, let's have a respectable season, but the number 1 pick, to me, is a little early.
Jesse, you want to go farther than that? Jesse Nicholson's on here suggesting guys he wants to draft. He mentions Grant Delpit, the safety from LSU. I like Delpit, but he hasn't actually had the best year for the Tigers so far this year. They haven't done great defensively so far just yet. Charles Weaver also mentions Vic Beasley. And here's the thing, and by the way, as I said before, Chuck's going to break down this Falcons pass rush in a second. It's going to be really good. We're going to hear from Quinn, his thoughts on what they want to try to do against Murray on Sunday as well. But the Beasley situation and some of those guys like that, which Atlanta drafted, in Beasley's case, brought back again this year in kind of a show-me contract, that also kind of puts the spotlight on Thomas Dimitroff a bit too. This is one of those things where the evaluation is ongoing of Quinn because of what we're seeing on the field, but probably more of an off-season conversation. But because of the guys like Takk McKinley and Vic Beasley and what we're kind of not seeing from Desmond Trufant, high-profile draft picks, one way or another, Thomas Dimitroff is not spared from this conversation either.
No, he's not, because Thomas is a part of the group when he got the scouts coming together with the advanced scouting, the scouts, and they ultimately put the information together to take to Dan Quinn. Yeah, Thomas is a part of this, but again, this is one part I will say that the philosophy that Dan Quinn brought in, fast and physical, he wanted fast guys. Remember, everything was about speed. It's funny that same kind of philosophy wasn't said much in the past, but in the beginning was all about what? Speed, speed, speed. Vic Beasley has speed, but they overlooked a few other intangibles that Vic didn't necessarily have. But I think Thomas is in the conversation, but Dan Quinn drafted the guys that he has on the roster when it comes to the defense for sure.
This is an interesting comment from Keith Campbell, going back to Mr. Blank's notion of a respectable season. Keith says, respectable seasons only help the coaching staff. It does nothing for our problems, but masks them over. I got to tell you, I think Keith's right about that. And I understand what Blank says when he mentions a respectable season. In other words, hey, don't go out there and embarrass yourself, play with professionalism and pride. I get Blank's point on that, but I think the commenter actually gets this right, that from a fan's perspective, either be great or be terrible. Like, a respectable season is not doing a whole lot for anybody. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
great or terrible?
I mean, if you're not going to be great, you might as well be terrible. That's what a lot of Falcons fans are going to say, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times you see teams that bounce in the middle, like the Philadelphia Eagles. We're good here, we're here. All of a sudden, boom, we get one. That's where the Falcons have been over the years. You know what I mean? You're in the middle, and then you expect eventually to win the Super Bowl. Seattle Seahawks did the same thing. You know, one of the best teams get to the playoffs, get knocked out. Best teams get knocked out. But you got to get there. But the problem with the Falcons, they went from being one of the top teams and getting ready to crest and get to the Super Bowl. They didn't crest. They went downhill.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the Falcons weren't expected to be in this situation, were they?
Right.
No.
Right.
The Falcons were expected to be, on another level. So I understand what you're saying. But this is totally unexpected when it comes to where the Falcons are.
All right, so like half the comments in the comment section right now are about pass rush. So let's just go ahead and move on to that. First of all, Dan Quinn did address the idea of the people who think they haven't been blitzing enough. Quinn says he wants to blitz more on Sunday. In fact, here is what he said about that ahead of the matchup with the Cardinals.
Yeah, for sure. It's a huge emphasis for us to make sure rush, pressure, the whole thing, that we can affect the quarterback. Sometimes that's with 4, sometimes that's with 5 or 6, but however it takes, that has to happen. And that's certainly part of our mindset, obviously, heading into this game for sure.
So definitely they say they have plans to get after the extra pass rusher, maybe bring 5 a little bit more, which I know you like. But also, you've been kind of, as you said before, kind of in the lab this week about kind of what you want to see more up from the Falcons in terms of how you send 5, how you kind of go about your business on that. Now, this is actually, I think, going to be really fun. I want to just kind of give the floor over to you for all the people who are asking you your opinions on Beasley. How should they use him? How should they use all the personnel when it comes to this? You've kind of done some work on this. We're going to show some stuff on the screen and just give you a chance to kind of walk your way through what you think Atlanta needs to do. And I think for the folks who want to see more aggressive defense from the Falcons, I believe that Chuck's got a pretty good prescription here. So y'all listen up on Chuck here.
We're going to put the...
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen.
Okay,
watch your way through
pause it right there. All right, pause it right there if you can. Are we good on that? All right, first thing is this is the base front 4 that the Falcons have been using. This is it for the last 2 years. Vic Beasley at the left defensive end on their 4-man front. Grady Jarrett plays on the left. Adrian Claiborne, Tack McKinley on the right. So,
Can I just pause before you get going too much?
What?
I couldn't do this if you gave me 100 days to get. Like, this is actually a pretty impressive technique because you did all this on your own.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of our staff help you with this. Gosh knows I couldn't help you with that. This is pretty good.
I'm a Tennessee grad. There are lots of higher education.
All right, I'm sorry. The
brother.
floor is yours.
All right, cool. So you see this here. So now, one of the things that I think that again, just me talking, in my lab with the Falcons front 4 pass rush, to me, it's not as necessarily about the kind of talent these guys have. It has to be with a few small pieces, changing around. So let's go to the next slide. First thing I would do out of this front 4, as you see right here, I'm going to move Tack McKinley to the left side. We're going to move Vic Beasley out. Tack is a better left side rusher. Okay. And a lot of this has not as much to do with Tack, because it has a lot to do with moving Adrian Claiborne from the inside to the outside. Okay. Adrian Claiborne is a great pass rusher. He has a special move, cross chop, and when he's in there, he wins all the time. So as you see, we got Tack on the left, Adrian Claiborne on the right. Now, the next slide, we'll go here moving forward. We'll give it a second. My technology's working with their technology. Mine's not quite as good as theirs. But Adrian Claiborne at the right defensive end. Now, here's the key. Here's the franchise. Here's the centerpiece. Yeah. Grady Jarrett, he needs to play on the right side, and he needs to always travel with Adrian Claiborne. Let me tell you why. Grady's a better rusher. He's comfortable with his left hand down. He's a better pass rusher on the right side. Plus, the Falcons like to run a lot of 2-man games. What that is for our viewers, twists, where Adrian Claiborne will go inside that outside offensive lineman, Grady Jarrett, to wrap around. They should stay on this side every time. Aaron Donald never rushes on the left.
Yeah.
He always rushes on the right.
Yeah.
The great Reggie White always rushed on the left.
Uh-huh.
Grady Jarrett needs to be set up in that same situation to always rush on the right with Adrian Claiborne.
So this is lining up between guard and center?
I'm lining up between, guard and center. So he would be from our right, from our viewer standpoint. You'd have the right, you have a offensive lineman 1, 2, the second guy in. So there we go. We got Grady there. Now here's the question. Who becomes the fourth rusher that comes in there? Is it going to be Sanat? No. Is it going to be one of the big jumbo guys that are 3-4 guys that I hate seeing in there on long yardage? No. What we're going to do is move forward. This is going to be a guy I'm very high on as we move forward. This is going to be Jack Crawford here at this on the shade. Jack is smart, big, and powerful. He gives that extra bite that the Falcons need in the front four. So my 4-man front, I'm going to have Jack Crawford in here because what he brings to the table, okay? Now here is the wild card. Here's what's going to make the Falcons become special and become dominant without sending 6 and 7 players.
Y'all going to like this.
And here's your guy. We're going to take all the things he does well, and now what we're going to do is basically maximize his potential. Vic Beasley. All right, we got to move that little former Falcon DE, so we got to see Vic. Vic got a big chest, we got his name down there. So look, Vic Beasley, as you can see, guys, we got 4 up front now. There's been a lot of conversation about Vic Beasley dropping, playing strong side linebacker. What Vic Beasley was designed to do, he's fast straight ahead. Vic Beasley's he doesn't run well sideways. Vic Beasley's not laterally explosive. He's not good with body control. So what we're doing here, this is what I want Vic doing, blitzing in. Vic's working outside all these guys. We got a 5-man rush. Vic Beasley's going through the A-gaps, and this was what I would do. You use Vic Beasley's strength, he's straight. A-gaps, B-gaps, and then let me give you another one that I don't have on here. That's another opportunity. That same position that Vic Beasley's in, I'm putting Devondre Campbell there, bringing the nickel in for Devondre and using him there. But you want to get the most out of Vic Beasley, turn him into a weapon and shoot him through every one of those gaps with twists and turns. And the Falcons won't have to go all out with blitzes, but this will be a great package in my opinion.
I'm going to tell you this right now. By the way, that's the kind of stuff that Chuck Smith provides as a pass rush specialist, working with the next generation of guys who are going to be doing this at the NFL level. That's incredible stuff. And I'm going to tell you this right now. That's a defense I'd be entertained by watching right there. That's a defense I'd be entertained by. Giving Beasley the freedom to kind of do more work in the middle, or maybe his body type makes a little bit more sense right now. That's something I'd be entertained by seeing. Yeah,
and just when you look at it from that standpoint, and then people say, well, is he going to be in coverage? Well, say if we did throw Vic in coverage. You know what they need to do with Vic? Drop 10 yards back, cover 2. All you got to do is stand there. Anything comes across you, right? But you got to be taught those things. But Vic Beasley, I can see Adrian Claiborne and Grady Jarrett slanting in. Vic Beasley coming around. Yeah. Grady Jarrett going in the A-gap inside the center, and Adrian Claiborne going out, Vic hitting the inside. Setting them up, twists and grabs and pops and turns. Vic Beasley is limited going laterally. Yeah. And over the last few years, it's driven me crazy. Straight ahead, when you see Vic go straight, he's rolling. But when you see Vic have to go sideways, he can't bend. He can't bend, the corner and things like that. This is how he'd be a weapon for the Falcons.
James Bryant likes what he's seeing there. James, we appreciate the compliment. Kenneth Vines, much the same way. Appreciate that there as well. And it's one of the reasons why we have former player on the show who has a passion for the subject matter, because they're going to be able to kind of talk about, their perspective, what they see going on. We appreciate all of you being a part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite today. Of course, Miller Lite is the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories, and it's a great choice for you as you settle down with your friends, watch a little Falcons football here this year. Chuck, what do you say we take a few more comments here real quick? Really good breakdown. Casey Matthews says they need to blitz more, and while certainly I don't mind the idea of sending 5, I do like your point of if you've got the right the right 4, or in I guess Beasley's case, he kind of becomes that 5th. If you've got that guy, you don't have to be quite so aggressive at that point in time, because now you've got more one-on-one battles being won. Because listen, Murray may not be the guy that breaks us apart. Makes you pay for this. But can Jared Goff do that in a couple of weeks? Can Russell Wilson do that? The answer is yes. It's not a given that Drew Brees won't be playing when you're playing the Saints coming up in a couple of weeks. Those are guys that if you try to be too aggressive with your pass rush, if you're not winning enough one-on-one battles to get the quarterback, And some of these really smart quarterbacks, like a Wilson or a Breeze, they're just going to pick you apart.
Yeah, and if you're going to play zone, let's do something. Let's attack.
Yeah.
Let's hit the quarterback, right? We already see we can't play man-to-man, so let's build up our pass rush. Let's get guys that can go. But also, last thing I want to say about bringing in the fifth rusher, and that could be Vic. Line Vic over that nose guard. Now you can't slide to Grady Jarrett.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what happens is everybody collapses on Grady Jarrett. So if you bring Vic in, you got 5-on-5 instead of 5-on-4. So, but no, you're right. I'm playing. If they're going to play zone, let's go back. But if we're going to play man-to-man, let's send 5. Let's not send 7. And those 5 guys are rushers. Somebody's going to get home, and if not, we'll definitely be able to pressure.
Well, let me say something I've noticed as a former player, but kind of drives me crazy. I think the average fan probably agrees with me on this. You can't play zone coverage and not blitz, right? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you're not giving me really anything aggressive really anywhere, because these quarterbacks in the NFL now are just going to sit there and attack the seams all day long, right? I mean, they're going to find the gaps between that zone. They're just going to pick you apart all day long.
No question.
If you're sitting back in a zone, you're not blitzing, then what are you really doing? You just got 11 guys just standing there and watching at a certain point.
You're right. So if you're not blitzing, you sit back in the zone and you don't get there, first down. And another thing, I would hope the Falcons never again, while I see this defense rush 3 men. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Anytime you rush 3, that gives a quarterback 5, 6, 7. There was one time Deshaun Watson legitimately had 8, 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So and this is a philosophy that most coordinators have in the National Football League. A 3-man rush means first down. Listen to that. 3-man rush means first down against a quarterback that has patience. You rush 3 on Tom Brady, he's chilling.
Yeah.
I'm Brady. I'm taking my time.
Right, yeah.
So the Falcons should never rush 3, and they got to figure out also another way to anticipate personnel and get those big guys off the field, because on first and second downs, they got to either set up some pass rush, because what's his name, Allen, and some of those big guys that we've implemented that 3-4, they're killing us on first down pass rush. And let me just say one more thing. If I'm going to do play action pass, I'm going to do it a win on first down. So when you go to a 3-4 and you got 3 guys up front that are over 300 pounds that can't rush, if I'm a quarterback and I'm a coordinator on another team, I'm going to throw on what? First down.
Yeah. You
got to have guys up front and be able to match personnel, which the Falcons haven't done very well.
Yeah, that is a outstanding point. It's AJC Falcons News Now. By the way, if you like the Falcons coverage you get here on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. You'll love the in-depth coverage you get in the AJC each and every week. And when you become an AJC subscriber, you get this really cool Falcons cooler as a special thank you to you. But you got to use this website below here. It's subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. Lots of different choices, daily e-paper, home delivery. You can get home delivery on Sunday. But when you sign up as a special thank you to you, as a proud partner of the Atlanta Falcons, the AJC offers you this officially branded Atlanta Falcons cooler. People love the breakdown. I loved it as well. That is really good stuff. Hopefully that's why you tune into our program each and every week on Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Let me change the channel here for a moment, though, and talk about Matt Ryan. And I'm going to let you hear from Stephen A. Smith from ESPN in just a moment. Before that, though, do you think that Ryan has been spared too much for the 1-4 start? Because, I mean, I'll admit on this show I've said it's 7 turnovers, it's, blah, blah, blah. This is still the nucleus of your team, better offensive coordinator, using the skill set better. Things are probably different from Ryan. For the most part, I feel like I've given him a free pass. Our comment section that certainly watches on Facebook and coming soon on YouTube, they don't give him a free pass. They've been a little bit critical of him. But maybe guys like me who talk into a microphone for a living, maybe we've been a little easy on Ryan. Do you think Ryan has been spared too much the heat from the 1-4 start for the Falcons?
Well, I'm not exactly how you feel about it, but from our viewer standpoint and the people in the city, Matt Ryan is on. Listen, Matt Ryan's tail's on fire. He's in Peachtree. Look, these fans they're not letting Matt Ryan off the hook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The conversations in the barbershops, I'm in the shops, the conversations in Athens, the conversation some of these cities I train in, you know what I mean, if I'm in Buford. No, the Falcon fans feel that way. But I will say this, this is my opinion now. I'll tell you who I feel has kind of gotten off the hook a little bit is Julio Jones.
Interesting.
So for the rest of the year, I keep saying this, we're not going to get any catches from Julio because they're double teaming him. Yeah. Is it just a scheme?
Right.
I mean, you got to get open sometime, because I'm watching on the video sometime, Matt Ryan sitting back there pumping. All right, Julio, take a drag, come across, keep chasing the ball. So to me, Matt Ryan is maybe not has gotten enough blame, but I don't hear nobody talking about Julio. Nobody. So, and it just seems like everybody's blaming everything else on the scheme, Devontae Freeman, Matt Ryan. Or let me tell you this, they even blaming the offense. They even blaming Hooper because he getting too many catches. He's taking away from Julio. There's too much Julio-isms going on right now, man. Julio gets the ultimate pass because people love him.
Well, here's the thing about Julio, though. You want an NBA-style contract, which he did. He wanted guaranteed money. He wanted to be paid like an NBA player. If that's what you want, you are going to be judged by an NBA, like an NBA player is. NBA players don't get to say come playoff time, well, I didn't get my shot off because that was double-teamed. If you're LeBron James, if you're Kevin Durant, if you're one of those guys, you are going to be double-teamed, and you still got to get the ball, and you still got to get the shot off. So from that standpoint, I don't disagree with you about Julio Jones. I don't know what the scheme is that gets him more than 3 catches, but you can't give a guy a 3-year extension for like $66 million, whatever it was, big-time money. You can't give him that kind of money and then give him 3 catches in a game where you're absolutely getting blistered against the Houston Texans.
Now, let me tell you this. And this is how it was when I played with the Atlanta Falcons. And this is maybe a different era. And I'm not Bama built. I'm Vol built. But when I came to the Falcons, if you're going to be a leader, you got to be an alpha leader, Julio. Okay. You got to have enough gonads to go to the coordinator, go to Dan Quinn. Matter of fact, go to the owner, and guess what? They're going to listen to you. I would hope Julio would do that, because there are years ago, and I'm just going to use me an example. We were running a run and shoot. And it absolutely sucked when you played with the Falcons back then when June Jones was here. Mm-hmm. I went to Taylor Smith, I went to those guys, and I said, hey, for us if we're ever going to be a championship team, we got to be able to run the ball and play defense. Mm-hmm. So Julio Jones, go to those guys and know what? One time maybe say, Julio, you know what, guys? I'm disappointed. Julio, you know how an offense should work. You and Matt Ryan. So who is that guy that's man enough to go to them and say, hey, let's make these changes? Now, Julio might be doing that, and I'm just talking from the sidelines. But that's what I would hope that they would do, that they would come up and say, hey, let's make some changes, because guess what? Julio's going to be here. Dan Quinn ain't here. No matter what, the players have more power than the coaches.
That's very interesting. Well, on the subject of Matt Ryan, who is also potentially one of these leaders that could step up in a situation like that, on ESPN this week, Stephen A. Smith, a guy you've heard of, he certainly didn't spare Matt Ryan in terms of some of the criticism for Atlanta getting off the start that it's gotten off to. I thought this was interesting. I wanted you guys to hear this as a conversation started for us. Here is Stephen A. from ESPN this week.
You're Matt Ryan, who's completed 70% of his passes, by the way, although it's just 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. How in God's name are you losing games? And you got Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu. How in God's name are you 1-4? This is some inexcusable stuff. There's no excuse for it. This is a guy that once took you to the Super Bowl. And remember, Kyle Shanahan was his offensive coordinator. And for some inexplicable reason, you decided to keep throwing the ball instead of running it with a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl that you blew. And they have never, ever recovered since. Something is wrong. Something needs to be done about it. I don't know what it is, but I don't know too many teams, too many coaches that would be 1-4 with that offensive firepower.
So it's kind of funny. In classic Stephen A. Smith style, he sort of veered into a different point by the time he was done, talking about the hangover from the Super Bowl, which may or may not be true. But it's actually what Stephen A. says at the beginning that for the most part is more interesting to me of, if you're 1-4, you're the franchise quarterback, it's probably fair to say that Dan Quinn can't have the brunt of all of this responsibility, and Thomas Dimitroff can't have the brunt of all this responsibility. At a certain point in time, especially given the interceptions that Ryan has thrown, and maybe Ryan's inability to find Julio Jones last week, and as some of our commenters are mentioning, Blake Robinson on Facebook not finding Calvin really enough as well. At a certain point in time, you got to include Matt Ryan in this. Now, the difference between Ryan, Dimitroff, and Quinn is one way or another, Ryan's not going anywhere. Dimitroff and Quinn, jury's still out on that. But in terms of the sort of autopsy for how you got to 1-4 after 5 games, Ryan probably does belong to be a part of this conversation. And I think that Stephen A. is probably correct for mentioning his name in this discussion.
Well, the quarterback gets what? Too much credit and too much blame.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, there is something to be said about the quarterback making people better. Now, when we watch him in the pocket, you just don't see the Russell Wilson. Let's just look at the optics. I don't see Russell Wilson. I don't see Tom Brady. I don't see Drew Brees. We've always in Atlanta had that argument, is he elite? No, he's not elite. He's a good quarterback, but he's a great one when all the pieces are working in place. But I don't know what it is. I've told you, it seems like he's a little bit punch drunk, but Stephen A. has a great point. I mean, Matt Ryan, let's put it this way. Here's a good example. If we're in New England and Tom Brady is playing like this,
fair comparison.
Right?
Fair comparison.
All the blame. Even in Daniel Jones in New York, I mean, they're crucifying him now just from last night.
Yeah, but that's their fault for overrating him. And we said this in the show. Danny Dimes, like
well, look, how are we overrating him and you called him Danny Dimes? Dude, you called him Danny Dimes.
That's his nickname.
Look, but how you already called him Danny Dimes? You called him Danny Dimes.
The point is, quarterbacks who are not good in college don't miraculously become good in the NFL. I mean, that's just a fact.
Nah. But
I mean, if he was good at Duke, you'd have seen him play on television.
Danny Dimes, you're already saying he's no good or he's not going to be good.
I'm telling you right now, 10 years from now, we'll all meet back in the same spot. Danny Dimes is not a good NFL quarterback.
Wow. Okay, Baker Mayfield.
I'm not sure about Baker either, but I know for a fact about Daniel.
Just saying, that's what Baker said, so we'll see. You and Baker in the same hot seat. We'll see.
The point is about Ryan, though, on this Sunday. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it seems like
Yes, you should. Go ahead.
It seems like there's maybe even a little bit extra pressure on Ryan this week because it's a quarterback on the other side who's young, he's good with his legs, remains to be seen if he can throw the ball in the NFL. You know, he's got Murray's got his own issues, but he is kind of the quarterback that a lot of people in the NFL are really excited about. People love seeing Mahomes run around and kind of keep that offense going.
I'm not excited about that one, though. He's only 5'8". I'm not really that excited, but I get it.
Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. You know, there's this thing, the quarterback in Philadelphia keeping plays alive with his legs. Carson Wentz. You know, there's a thing now where if you can use your legs, you don't have to be Michael Vick, but if you can just keep a play alive a little bit longer, there's some excitement about that in the league. People like watching those quarterbacks on television. Organizations like building their teams around those kind of quarterbacks. Matt Ryan needs to go out and beat one of those kind of quarterbacks this Sunday.
Matt Ryan needs to take off and basically show some extra and go dive out.
Yeah.
How many times did we see Matt Ryan, and you got me, man, this is one of those kind of days, bro. You got me Falcon fired up. I got my gear on.
Chuck came in all like head to toe.
Hey,
I knew Chuck
you
was
got
going to be
me
ready
fired
to go
up,
today.
man. But look, I want to see Matt Ryan stop pumping the ball. If you count, I counted last week 4 times Matt Ryan went to the right, pumping the ball. Stop pumping the ball and get vertical, get downfield and challenge yourself. That's one of the things that I was in my barbershop the other day, Universal Barbershop, and everybody talked about, we want to see Matt Ryan. When you realize that you got to make a play, take off and run. Matt Ryan showed 2 years ago that he was a better runner. Remember everybody saying he's a better runner than we thought he was. He was running, getting first downs.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't Michael Vick, but he was absolutely making some plays with his legs. You got to take a chance, throw your body in there, and let the chips fall where they may. I want to see Matt Ryan do that.
A couple of years ago, he was running. This year, he's pretty much running for his life.
He always ran for his life. He ain't never stopped running. But hopefully those new old linemen are developed before he retires. It could take a few.
Ryan did address, though, what he wants to see more from the Falcons offense. He knows it hasn't been good enough. He talked about this week what he wants to see, not just from himself, but all of his teammates in terms of how they get better. Here's what Ryan said about that.
I think it's all 11 of us doing our job for 4 quarters. As you know, there's been, like you said, there's been some good things too. I mean, there's been times where we moved the ball really effectively and been able to score points. You know, but we haven't been able to put a complete game together. Where for 4 quarters we've played consistent football. You know, that way for the entire game, and that's got to be our mindset. Is have a week of practice that gives us the best chance to be consistent for 4 quarters.
So obviously Ryan kind of taking the same approach. When we've talked about this before, he's a buttoned-up professional guy. If he's, turning over tables in private, he's not going to show that in public. That's another example of that where he takes more of the mild-mannered, even-keeled approach.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, Tiger's a good comparison.
The Peyton Manning,
Yeah.
It's all good. It's never bad.
Yeah, that's
Until
exactly
you get
right.
caught up doing some other stuff, Tiger, but that's, we're going to.
Let me get a few comments, because obviously a lot of folks talking about Ryan here. Emmanuel Tanya Loggins mentioning the idea of Jake Fromm. Listen, I don't think Ryan's not going anywhere in Atlanta, but I do think it's fair to say that if you're the franchise quarterback making the money that he's making, mentioning him in this discussion on a 1-4 start is probably fair to do here.
He's going to be here a lot longer than I think people realize. Matt's going to be here for a while.
Charlie B also mentioning, he says Ryan freezes up if his first progression isn't there. I don't know if that's the issue so much. It's almost like, I don't know the first thing what I'm talking about here because I've never read a defense in the field. It almost seems like he's reading defenses too well because he's more settling for a hooper or settling for, a stock or, settling for kind of a dump down tight. And Hooper's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's sort of settling for that option as opposed to the touchdown he threw near the end of the half against Houston on Sunday.
Calvin Ridley?
Where, the Ridley makes an unbelievable catch.
He's running to the
but
right.
Ryan makes a pretty athletic move to get the ball. I mean, some of y'all are here knocking him for his deep ball and knocking him for stuff like that. The throw to Ryan to Ridley near the end of the half against Houston, that's what you want to see more of. Unfortunately, we just haven't seen as much of that as we'd like to have.
Yeah, that was about 30 yards. See, that's what I mean. But on that play, Matt Ryan had a gang of time to if he wanted to run. And he made a great play, but that's just an example. I'm looking at two pieces to this now. Matt Ryan did a good job buying time. Calvin Ridley stayed open. It was good to see him get there. But about the deep pass. When Matt Ryan throws a deep pass at the bends, it hits like the top of the bends, it goes straight up. Matt Ryan, it's well documented. He doesn't. When's the last time you seen a deep pass? Like a long touchdown?
Yeah.
Was it Carolina when Julio was that a 300-yard game last year? But the ball kind of goes straight up and it hits the top of the it goes out the bends hole and it kind of comes straight down about 30. Okay, all right, yeah, I know.
No, that's fair.
It's a joke, but I'm just saying it.
I understand what you're
not
saying.
Trying to beat him up.
Yeah.
But there is no deep ball game for the Falcons. To me, it's got to be short, intermediate. So I think that hurts Matt Ryan and the team because you rarely see anybody take the top off of it and Matt throwing it deep.
Yeah, that's. I mean, listen. If you've got Julio and you've got Ridley, there's no excuse for not getting them involved deep down the field, aggressively. And that's one of the reasons why I've kind of pushed for the idea if a coaching change is made, I want it to be one of these sort of new school offensive-minded coaches and figure the defense out some other point in time because you've got big money invested in the quarterback, big money invested in wide receivers. Find somebody who can do something with them. I mean, even though it's a weird thing because if and when Quinn gets fired, it's his bad defense going to get him fired. But if Atlanta brought in a defensive-minded head coach, to me it's a lost opportunity. You are wasting the nucleus that you have. Ryan, Julio, Ridley, that's your nucleus. You want to mention Hooper in that, I guess that's fine. But it's really those three to me, the two receivers and the quarterback. You are wasting that nucleus if you don't have a coaching staff that maximizes what they're able to do.
And it's funny you say that. I was just thinking about this. We're talking about maximize. You just brought up personnel. And I hate to bring this name up. Saints. Oh, Saints.
Yeah.
You tell me right now that New Orleans Saints, do they got a better wide receiver and running back core than the Falcons? Michael Thomas speaks for himself, but is Julio?
Alvin Kamara made one of the best players in the league.
I get that. But how is one player open so many times?
Yeah.
How is Kamara split out in the slot and gets open? How is Michael Thomas doing the things he does?
Yeah.
Drew Brees, okay, let's switch everybody up. And I'm not making that comparison because the Saints have shown that they're consistently better. But Julio Jones, to me, is as good as Michael Thomas. Numbers say so, but that's up to, it's somewhat of an argument.
I think you're making a good point.
Okay, yeah. Devontae Freeman, he's no Alvin Kamara, but, I mean, he should be doing at least something. I mean, he's no Kamara, right? But at one time, we thought he was better than Kamara, a few years ago in the Super Bowl year, right? So then you look at Hooper. They got Cooper. We got Hooper, right? So all I'm saying is this. Why are they so successful when everyone in the league knows they're going to throw the ball? To me, it starts to come down with a little bit of scheme, coordinator, and it also comes with the players, make it work or figure out a way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, nobody who's watching our show right now, primarily Falcons fans, they don't like Sean Payton. But Payton, over the course of the long haul, has shown you the value in the NFL of having an offensive-minded head coach.
Maybe one of the best ever.
You can knock Payton for 1,000 things. That guy knows how to develop an offensive game plan, and as Chuck said, maximize the talent for his personnel. And by the way, you know somebody else that might be able to do that? That's Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley. Just keep it tucked up in the back of your mind. Just keep that tucked in. Now, we did get some. I don't want to say this is news. This is rumor, but there's going to be a lot more of this kind of stuff popping out over the next few weeks. Benjamin Albright, who covers the league, tweeted out this week that the first opening, the Washington Redskins, a true mess if there ever was one. We know how Daniel Snyder and everything else going on there. Well, Benjamin Albright tweets this out, and this is kind of interesting. Falcons fans, listen up on this. Skins fans may be wanting Lincoln Riley, but source tells me, quote, that job would not be a consideration for him if he were to even have eyes for the league. So we don't know if Riley wants to come to the league or not. According to Benjamin Albright and a source close to him, it would not be for the Redskins. That's not a surprise. I think the jury's kind of out on Haskins. I don't know if people have high feelings about Haskins as a quarterback or not.
He got no love. He ain't played yet.
Well, he's played a little bit.
Well, a little itty bit. Like a pinch bit.
And it wasn't good.
Go ahead, B.
If you have a chance to coach Ryan in the final few years of his prime or, develop Dwayne Haskins, I'm thinking surely you might want to be with Ryan and Julio in this grove here. But one way or another, we don't know how he feels about the Falcons. But according to Benjamin Albright, would not coach the Redskins. That to me is not a huge surprise, but it does get you excited, at least with the possibility that maybe for the right NFL job, maybe Riley might be willing to listen.
Okay,
Hashtag stinking for Lincoln.
Hashtag stinking for Lincoln. I'm going to ride with you on that. If he
Okay.
came to Atlanta,
Yeah.
he could do better. But I'm Lincoln Riley. I am not leaving Norman. I'm going to using this Falcons leverage and all this NFL leverage to get me a nice little Jimbo Fisher kind of $100 million type of big
because
deal.
whether it comes from Atlanta or not, it's coming from someone in the NFL.
I'm not leaving college. I got a great environment. I know I'm going to win each and every year. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I know you want, stinking for Lincoln?
Hashtag stinking for Lincoln.
Stinking for Lincoln. But you know what's interesting? Washington, one of the all-time great franchises can't get it right. And then this new, like my son, they don't even remember when these guys were ever good.
Right.
I mean, think about that.
It's been a long time for
My kids
Washington.
don't know that.
I was growing up, 3 Super Bowls they won in the 80s, but it's been a long time now. Speaking of the Redskins and everybody else in the league, before Chuck shows us some cool stuff he's brought today, let us take a quick trip around the league for week 6 around the NFL? We at week 6? Let's see week 6 preview here a bit, and we'll kind of highlight some of the games that maybe matter the most for us. Tampa and Carolina, of course, in London this week. Kind of a tough spot for them, especially Tampa after having been in New Orleans the week before. I like the way that Carolina's playing right now. I'm a little bit of a Panthers believer at the moment. I like Allen, the quarterback, and I just like a lot of things they're doing. I thought getting the win against Jackson was a pretty good win.
Well, that's a real good win. Jacksonville had been kind of hot. I like Carolina. Carolina defensively, every year that defense holds them down no matter who's at quarterback. So, and Christian McCaffrey, MVP talk a little bit.
Cincinnati is just terrible. They're at Baltimore. Baltimore gets a good win last week after kind of getting exposed a little bit versus Cleveland the week prior to that. Seattle-Cleveland's a pretty good game. New Orleans at Jacksonville. That's a fun game for me on Sunday. I continue to believe, obviously like everyone else does, that New Orleans is among the top of the NFC. On the road at Jacksonville, a little bit of a tricky spot there. We've seen maybe some vulnerabilities from Kansas City against an AFC South team last week in Indianapolis. Can Houston, based on what you saw from them last week, can they challenge in Arrowhead on Sunday?
Definitely, because my quarterback, Deshaun Watson, going to get 4 touchdowns. So I'm liking Houston. It's going to be a shootout. So a lot of points for our fantasy folks out there.
Washington and Miami, 2 of the worst teams we've seen playing each other. Weirdly, I'm probably more interested in this than some other games.
It's a good game.
Yeah, I'm actually more interested in that than I would be some others. I think Philly, Minnesota is a pretty good game. Atlanta at Arizona, obviously. San Francisco 49ers, man. Interesting stuff.
They're young.
I think I like them on the road this week. I like them on the road.
I like them. Look, they're young, aggressive, and they just got this swagger right now.
Tennessee at Denver, not too much interested in that for me. Dallas at the Jets. Obviously, Jets aren't very good.
I got interested in
Detroit at Green Bay is not a bad game, right?
No, it's not bad. No, not really.
Yeah.
Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, looking pretty good.
So that's the week around the NFL, and we'll obviously look forward to seeing how the NFC South teams do, with the Saints heading to Jacksonville and the pretty intriguing game in London. That's 2 weeks in a row of being in London after Chicago and Oakland from last week. So that's week 6 around the NFL. And Chuck, it's always one of my favorite times in the show. You're on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. When you show off some of the stuff from your career, what you got here today?
I was digging in the closet last night, real deep in all the garbage. You know how we men do. We got a junk closet.
Look at this.
I found my old shoulder pads that I wore my entire career in Atlanta.
How about that?
I didn't wear them in Carolina because I wasn't quite the same player, and they didn't deserve to go through what I went through in Carolina.
I understand.
For Falcons, though, these are the tops. They're Cosby's. So what happened was, when I came to the Falcons, I was drafted. I brought these shoulder pads, had them ordered them. Brian Boyd, what's his name? Brian at the Falcons, the equipment guy. I was the first NFL player to come up with the cup shoulder. So
is
now
that right?
You see all the guys with the small shoulder pads on their shoulder defensive ends.
Better range of motion, right?
Yep, exactly. So what we did, we cut the shell here.
Okay.
And Brian still has the whole template that he had with the Falcons. We talk about it. So these were cut so they fit right on your shoulder. So when your shoulder goes down, everything moves with it. So yeah, these are my shoulder pads. The kids today will look at them and say, "Oh, those are old." But yep, we cut these, and we kind of started a trend years ago for pass rushers. So this is real tight, fits over your shoulder. We cut it. He actually cut it, had it shaved down, and these are kind of what started a trend in the NFL. And this is what I wore.
Boy, you'd love to see that.
Yep.
Hopefully the shoulder pads will be popping for the Falcons on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. You think they get it done?
I think they compete very hard, and I'm not sure. Look, I don't know whether they can win or they lose, but right now, I'm pulling for them. I'm pulling for them, but it's going to be a tough game.
Here's what I know, that one way or another, win or loss, your game watch party, the folks hanging around your living room or basement, whatever, will have a whole lot more fun when you make Miller Lite a part of it. The official beer of the Atlanta Falcons tastes great. It's just 96 calories. Settle in and enjoy some on Sunday as you're watching the Atlanta Falcons. And make sure you tell folks we do this show for you every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Check us out back here again on Monday. We will recap what happens one way or another. And if you saw us on Monday, we're not going to pull any punches if it's not good, but hopefully for Falcons fans' sake, a chance to talk about some happier stuff. We'll see you one way or another that time, 1 p.m. on Monday for AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Y'all have a great day, everybody.